The evening sun was gently shining. New York was always bustling and lively. On Fifth Avenue, home to the world's top luxury brands, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly stopped in front of the Maison Laurent store. From inside the car, Sienna Hayes stepped out, a 36-year-old black woman, CEO of Hayes Capital, one of the largest investment firms in the US. She wore an elegant black jumpsuit, paired with Christian Louboutin heels, Versace sunglasses and an Hermes Birkin bag worth over $100,000. She entered the store with a confident stride. But as soon as she stepped through the glass door, the saleswoman's gaze, Linda, a white woman in her 40s, immediately shifted. Linda scanned Sienna from head to toe, not recognizing who she was. She curled her lips into a thin smile and approached with a fake tone. "Sorry, miss, but our store serves clients by appointment only. Do you have an appointment?" Sienna raised an eyebrow but didn't show any sign of irritation. "I'd like to see the latest couture collection." Linda let out a light mocking laugh, her eyes full of doubt. "Couture? Oh. I think those pieces are a bit too expensive." Sienna knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't the first time she'd faced discrimination because of her skin color. But instead of getting angry, she simply smiled. "I think I can afford it." She pointed to a stunning couture dress in the display case, priced at $50,000. "I'd like to try that dress on." "Lynn." DA looked Sienna up and down again, then sighed as though she was wasting her time. "Sorry, but we only allow special clients to try on couture pieces." Just then, another white customer walked in, dressed simply, but was immediately attended to. Linda quickly greeted her with a warm and enthusiastic smile. Sienna observed everything but said nothing. She didn't need to argue. She just smiled lightly, nodded, and turned to leave the store. They had just refused to sell to a billionaire. And tomorrow, they would pay the price for it. As soon as she stepped out of the store, Sienna took off her sunglasses, pulled out her phone, dialed a number that very few people could reach. "Ethan, I want to acquire Maison Laurent." On the other end of the line, Ethan Blake, CFO of Hayes Capital, paused for a few seconds. "Maison Laurent? Are you serious?" Sienna got into a Rolls-Royce, crossed her legs, and gave a cold, sharp look. "Very serious. And I want it done within 24 hours. Ethan took a deep breath. But didn't. He asked why, because he knew Sienna never made a move without a valid reason. He simply said, "I'll start right now." Maison Laurent was a long-established luxury brand. But in recent years, they had been facing financial difficulties, losing market share to bigger brands like Chanel and Dior. This is why Hayes Capital's offer to acquire them was a perfect opportunity for a rescue. Ethan immediately assembled Hayes Capital's financial and legal teams to research the deal. They quickly discovered that Maison Laurent had a fatal flaw. They were in desperate need of a large cash influx to keep their operations running. If Hayes Capital made an attractive enough offer, the major shareholders would have no choice but to accept. Within an hour, the takeover plan was set in motion. Sienna smirked lightly, leaning back in her Rolls-Royce seat. "Linda, tomorrow you won't be working there anymore." The real battle had begun. Maison Laurent headquarters, Paris. Louis Moreau sat in his office, the morning sunlight reflecting through the clear glass windows. He sipped a hot espresso, savoring the rare moment of peace before a long day ahead. But the tranquility was quickly shattered as the phone on his desk rang. "Louis, I need you to review an acquisition proposal immediately." The urgent voice of one of the major shareholders of the company echoed through the phone. Louis furrowed his brow. An acquisition proposal? Who would be interested in Maison Laurent at this point? The brand had once been a symbol of high fashion. But in recent years, sales had dropped significantly, increasingly overshadowed by competitors like Chanel and Dior. "Who wants to buy us?" Louis asked, a sense of unease creeping in. "Hayes Capital." Louis nearly dropped his espresso cup. Hayes Capital was one of the largest investment firms in the world, specializing in acquiring and reviving luxury brands. That meant they've acquired 51% of Maison Laurent's shares. Louis' heart skipped a beat. What? They've bought the shares from the major investors? The answer was yes. In less than 24 hours, Sienna Hayes had pulled off a deal he never imagined. By leveraging Maison Laurent's financial struggles, she made an offer that couldn't be refused. The shareholders, already concerned about the company's unstable future, quickly accepted the buyout proposal at a price of $450 million. And now, Maison Laurent officially belonged to Sienna. At the flagship store of Maison Laurent, no one knew that the fate of the brand had changed overnight. That was until they received an internal email the following morning. Maison Laurent is now officially owned by Hayes Capital. Mrs. Sienna Hayes is the new CEO of the brand. Linda turned pale as she read the message. It felt like a stone had just fallen on her. Her hands trembled and her eyes couldn't tear themselves away from the phone screen. Impossible. She's the new boss. The other employees in the store began murmuring among themselves. Some were shocked, others were confused, and some felt scared. Everyone knew that Maison Laurent had been struggling, but no one had expected the brand to be acquired overnight. At the CEO's office of Maison Laurent, Sienna entered with a cold smile, her sharp eyes scanning each face in the boardroom. Those present, from the executives to the heads of marketing, finance, and design, all felt the tension rise to a new unbearable level. "Hello, everyone. I am your new boss." The room fell silent, only the ticking of the clock's second hand could be heard. Louis Moreau, the former CEO of Maison Laurent, tried to maintain his composure, but his hands tightly gripping the coffee cup betrayed his unease. "Mrs. Hayes, this change is quite unexpected. But I trust you have a clear plan for the future of Maison Laurent." Louis spoke cautiously. Sienna sat down in the powerful leather chair at the center of the table. She crossed her legs, placed her hands on the table, gently tapped her fingers on the glass surface. "My plan is simple. Maison Laurent will no longer be a lagging brand as it was before. We will change our strategy, restructure the team, and bring the brand back to the top." Sienna looked at all the company's shareholders with the confident gaze of a business mogul. The next day, Sienna returned to the flagship store of Maison Laurent on Fifth Avenue. But this time, she wasn't alone. She entered with a team of lawyers, a new CEO, and a group of media personnel. Linda saw Sienna and froze completely. She couldn't believe that the woman she had humiliated the day before was now the owner of the entire company. Sienna took off her sunglasses and looked straight at Linda with a cold, piercing gaze. "Yesterday you said I couldn't shop here, didn't you?" Linda trembled, stammering and unable to respond. "I was just following store policy." Sienna smirked slightly, then looked Linda straight in the eye. "Good. Since I'm the new owner of this store, I have a new policy for you. You're fired." The entire store fell silent. The other employees widened their eyes, too afraid to even breathe. Linda gaped, unable to believe what she had just heard. What? A senior staff member approached, handed Linda the immediate termination letter. Linda felt as though her heart had dropped into an abyss. Sweat poured down her forehead. Her hands shook so violently that she could barely hold the paper. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes. I didn't know." I didn't know it was you. I can do better, please give me another chance. Sienna didn't respond. She turned and walked away, leaving Linda standing frozen in the middle of the store, overwhelmed by a sense of shame and desperation. And that was how Linda lost her job. At the flagship store on Fifth Avenue, the atmosphere was tense. Sienna had just fired Linda right in front of all the employees at Maison Laurent. Linda had been the guardian of the old values of the brand. But Sienna knew that in order to grow, she had to change everything. Linda had been unable to accept this change and left. Sienna stood in the middle of the store, her sharp gaze scanning each employee. She could clearly feel the fear and anxiety from everyone around her. But Sienna couldn't falter. She knew that to turn Maison Laurent into a brand of fairness, she had to change it from the roots. She couldn't continue to tolerate discrimination. Maison Laurent under my leadership will not tolerate any form of discrimination. If any of you feel you cannot accept that, leave right now. The room fell silent for a few seconds. The tension was palpable, but no one dared to oppose her. After a brief silence, 3 employees stepped forward and left without a word. Sienna wasn't surprised. She knew these were the ones who couldn't adapt to the changes she was bringing. "Thank you for your honesty," she said with determination. Even though 3 people left, Sienna didn't feel disappointed. She had mentally prepared for these losses. Sienna turned to the store manager, a middle-aged man. The store manager appeared conservative, accustomed to the traditional values of Maison Laurent. But Sienna knew that if she was to carry out the restructuring, she would need to persuade him. She needed his support to change the entire operation of the store. "I want an immediate meeting with all the staff. We will have a retraining session on customer service. And I want to see real changes." The store manager nodded, though not pleased. But he understood that this was an order he couldn't refuse. Sienna wasn't expecting everyone to agree with her, but she couldn't turn back. Sienna continued, resolute. She understood that not everyone would agree with these changes. But Sienna couldn't stop. She would lead Maison Laurent to become a brand open to everyone, regardless of class or race. The restructuring began. To succeed, Sienna would face many challenges. She knew there might be more people who wouldn't accept the change and would leave. However, she couldn't stop. Sienna was determined to carry out her plan. Maison Laurent would become a new symbol, fair and inclusive. Immediately after the meeting with the staff, Sienna began restructuring the entire system of Maison Laurent. Sienna realized that the biggest issue wasn't just a few individuals, but the company's entire brand culture. She worked relentlessly to improve every element of Maison Laurent, from the staff team to the marketing strategies and even the brand's image. After firing several employees and making some tough decisions, she saw that Maison Laurent needed a comprehensive overhaul and not just in operations but also in its core values. She understood that for this brand to thrive, it had to become a symbol of fairness and diversity. Sienna immediately implemented 3 major changes. Appointing a new management team, she replaced some of the old management with younger, dynamic individuals who had progressive mindsets. These people not only understood customer service, but also shared her vision of building a more inclusive and equitable brand. Establishing a no discrimination policy. Every employee was required to attend a special training course on how to serve customers fairly and professionally. This policy applied not just to the sales staff but to all departments within the company. Expanding the brand's image. Sienna began collaborating with designers from Black, Asian and Latinx communities to create diverse collections that reflected the inclusive spirit of Maison Laurent. She wanted this brand not just to be a symbol of luxury, but also a sign of inclusivity. Within just 3 months, these changes began to show results. Sales skyrocketed, especially from Black customers and other groups that had previously felt excluded from the brand. These customers now felt that Maison Laurent wasn't just a brand for the elite, but a space for everyone, regardless of race, gender, or background. Maison Laurent's advertising campaigns, featuring diverse models, received high praise. Major fashion magazines began to take notice of this innovation. Maison Laurent was no longer just a symbol of luxury and class, but had become a global brand, reflecting positive change in the fashion industry. With these changes, Maison Laurent attracted attention from many different customer groups. Sienna felt proud of what she had achieved in such a short time. But she knew this was just the beginning. She needed to maintain and expand these results to take Maison Laurent to new heights. Sienna knew this was only the beginning. The changes she had implemented were just the first steps in the long journey of Maison Laurent. She didn't just want to make Maison Laurent a leader in fashion. She wanted it to become a symbol of positive change in the industry. Under Sienna's leadership, Maison Laurent had entered a new era, one of modern values, fairness, and inclusivity. She had proven that a big brand could evolve to reflect diversity and fairness. She knew that with continuous effort, Maison Laurent would go even further. The story of Sienna quickly spread through the media. Sienna Hayes, the billionaire owner of Maison Laurent, became the center of attention for both the press and social media. She didn't just acquire a major brand. She was also someone who had once been refused service at a Maison Laurent store. Her story wasn't just about changing a brand, but also a major victory for those who support fairness in the fashion industry. Newspapers reported, Maison Laurent acquired by the billionaire on CE denied service. Sienna Hayes and her stunning turnaround in the fashion industry. A customer who was humiliated now owns the entire brand. This story not only shook up the fashion world, but also inspired those who fought for fairness. The story also caused a storm on social media. Millions of posts on Twitter, X, TikTok, and Instagram praised the changes Sienna had brought. This is how you take elegant revenge. She didn't just buy a brand, she bought the entire company. Maison Laurent UN. Sienna Hayes will be so much better. The online community quickly recognized that Sienna's actions weren't just a personal move, but a larger movement for change in the fashion industry. Sienna turned her story into a movement that transformed the entire fashion industry. She didn't just acquire Maison Laurent. She created a massive wave pushing for diversity and fairness. Sienna became a symbol of change, a revolution in the fashion industry. A leader in creating a more inclusive fashion space. After Maison Laurent's success under Sienna, many other luxury fashion brands had to change to avoid backlash. The achievements Sienna made with Maison Laurent not only made waves in the industry, but also created a movement for change. Renowned brands like Gucci, Prada, and Chanel realized that if they didn't adapt, they would lose customer support and face strong criticism. These brands immediately launched new anti-discrimination policies. They committed to diversifying their teams and designs, while also collaborating more with designers from Black, Asian, and Latinx communities. This was a crucial step for these brands to meet the growing demand for fairness and inclusivity from both society and their customers. The brands began inviting designers from underrepresented communities into the luxury fashion industry. This was a significant move, marking a change in how the industry operated. Major brands started inviting Black, Asian, Latinx designers to contribute to high-end collections, creating diversity in their fashion offerings. This shift was not only a change in design but also a strong statement about eliminating discrimination in the industry. Sienna realized that she was not just changing Maison Laurent, she was changing the entire industry. She knew that the changes she had made weren't just affecting one brand. They were part of a larger movement. Sienna was leading a revolution in the fashion industry, where diversity and inclusivity became indispensable values. Sienna sent a powerful message. No one has the right to decide who deserves luxury. This message not only reflected her perspective, but also asserted that luxury and success were not reserved for any one group, they were for anyone who deserved them. Sienna had changed the definition of luxury. She knew that this was just the beginning of a global shift. 1 year after she acquired Maison Laurent, Sienna stood on the stage of the world's largest fashion event, Paris Fashion Week. Sienna Hayes had officially become an icon, not only in the fashion industry but also in the fight against discrimination and injustice. Paris Fashion Week, the largest fashion event on the planet, was where she chose to deliver a powerful message that the entire industry would never forget. Before her were thousands of people, including some of the most influential figures in fashion. They all looked at her, the woman who had made a remarkable transformation. Now, she stood before them, ready to share the story of how she had dramatically changed the fashion industry. She stepped up to the podium, her eyes filled with confidence. As the applause faded, she took the microphone and spoke. "A year ago, I walked into a Maison Laurent store just to buy a dress. I was turned away. The entire room went silent." Sienna. As words made the atmosphere heavy, everyone waited in anticipation for what she would say next. They thought I wasn't capable of buying it. They thought I didn't belong in this world of luxury. She paused for a moment, then continued. Her gaze swept across the audience, as though she were looking directly at those who had once belittled her. "The next day, I bought the entire company." The applause erupted like thunder, continuing until she finished her speech. The audience, including those who had once doubted her, could no longer deny Sienna's resilience and intelligence. Everything she did had a purpose. She had proven that no one had the right to set limits on someone else's potential. I want to send a message to all luxury brands around the world. Never underestimate anyone. Luxury is not just for one group of people. It's for all of us. And that day, the world stood up and applauded. In just 1 year, Sienna had not only transformed a brand but had also changed the entire fashion industry. She turned rejection into motivation, hurt into strength. Her story had become a symbol of justice and perseverance. Justice was served. That day, Sienna didn't just reclaim her honor, she reclaimed it for everyone who had ever been underestimated in the fashion world. Her revenge was sweet, and everything she did proved that when you stand up for what's right, you will never fail.